The tall, gangly thing?
Hello and welcome. Today I am joined by DQA coming off his second place finish at the mid-set finale. DQA, thank you so much for being here today. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm really glad to be here.
Now, like I said, second place finish, mid-set finale, definitely a large accomplishment, especially I would say for kind of how people were rating you this set. I want to know first, what were your expectations going into mid-set?
Honestly, going into mid-set, I didn't really have like super big expectations, and I guess like maybe because I was not rated very highly this set, and I had not performed at many of the other tournaments thus far, I was really hoping for like a good performance here, but I didn't really like expect anything. I didn't really expect to go second. I didn't really expect, but I was just hoping that I would play the best I could.
Now, obviously, I mean, we saw you at the Set 4 World Championships. Like you've been up there, like on the big stage, right? And now you're one step closer with the top four. You have an automatic qualification at regionals. So I kind of want to just take a step back and think about that. I mean, what does it mean for you to actually have this automatic qualification at regionals where you don't really need to compete in the other 6.5 events?
I think it's honestly having this spot at regionals is like a really big deal to me, especially because I have a lot of other things going on in my life right now. Being busy with school and all that. Like, actually, right after the mid-set finale, like the week after, I had like 3 or 4 midterms on like the next week. So I was really stressed about that going into the mid-set, and like, it's all done now. But basically, having an automatic spot at regionals means that I don't have to necessarily compete and try as hard in 6.5, and I will still have that spot and my opportunity at Worlds.
Now, something to be said is despite the success we've seen you have in the past, set six introduced this new iteration of the power rankings in North America. The Don't Talk If You Don't Know panel put together a power rankings of the best North American TFT players. In the first edition of the power rankings, you were actually missing from the list. Later on, you did show up in the second edition of it, and we kind of talked about it before. I think for a lot of people, you were not rated as highly as you have in the past. Do you feel like you were underrated this set?
I think at the start of the set, I was still trying to learn, and I did not put as much time as I could have into TFT, mainly because of the start of school and everything of that sort. But over winter break, I felt like I went back and I played a lot, and I felt like I got a lot better. And I think I showcased my results fairly well at the Alicoin tournament, which I believe Bryce said was the like return for me, basically. I think later in the set, I felt like I was slightly underrated, but overall, at the end, I feel like I've made like somewhat of a name for myself again.
Now, set six has just about officially come to a close, depending on when this interview actually comes out. It may have actually come to a close. And I just want to take a look back. Obviously, you've been competing in a large array of different sets. I mean, how do you feel set six stood up against the other sets of TFT?
Do you mean in terms of like how fun it was to play, or like how competitive it was, or?
Yeah, I mean, let's take both. I mean, where was this in terms of like your favorite sets to play, and I guess from a competitive standpoint, how much skill expression was in it versus the other sets?
I think overall this has been very enjoyable. I think the idea of augments made it really fun to play a lot of times. Just because you get like insane combinations, and then you get to build like really crazy teams, and you get to play like differently a lot of games. Um, as for how competitive it was, I would say this was a fairly competitive set. Um, I think overall, my favorite set will always be set four. Not 4.5, but set four, just because Riven and then chose the new introduction of Chosen and that kind of thing. I think honestly, the set, in terms of competitive aspect, I think that it is pretty good. There are obviously things to be improved, but overall, I would say that there are a lot of different ways to play this set, and I feel like competitively, it should go pretty well.
Now, I'm curious based on what you just said. So, let's just talk about the competitive side of it. Based on all the sets that you've played, which set do you actually feel like was the most competitive or allowed for like the most amount of skill expression?
I'm gonna say that I didn't really get into competitive TFT until like late set three and early set four. So I can't really speak for set 3 or anything prior than that. I did watch set 3 Worlds, but I wasn't following it like super intently or anything like that. As for set 4, I thought that the chosen mechanic had a very high skill ceiling, and I thought that there was a lot of skill expression in that set. That's why that set will always hold like a place near to my heart, just because of that. But that may also come from some bias, just because I did manage to play at Worlds that set. I don't think I enjoyed set 5 at all. In terms of competitive aspect, I think that the set overall pretty good balance, like throughout the whole set basically, and then like competitively, it went like overall fine. I think that set, honestly, I feel like the mechanic was maybe just a little boring, which is why like not that many people enjoyed it, and I found that myself and a lot of others found a lot of burnout during that set because of it. As for set 6, I can't really tell yet, just because Worlds is still around the corner and there's still so much more to be played out this set, and honestly, I haven't done that much testing of 6.5 yet on PvE or anything like that, so I can't really tell you an answer for sure. But I'm hoping that set 6.5 will kind of pave the road for future competitive TFT too.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me into my next question. I know you said you haven't played too much of set 6.5, but just based on your initial impressions of what you've played or what you've watched, how do you feel about Neon Nights?
I haven't been playing much just because I've been busy with a lot of things to do in person, but I have played I have watched a little bit of PvE. I think that I like a lot of the concepts, and I like a lot of the carries being brought back, and I think that they really took a step forward in augments this time. They put a lot more like bold augments and like things that could possibly go wrong, but if balanced well, could like create some like crazy teams, really fun teams, and like just like really shake up how TFT is meant to be played. So I thought that was really interesting. One thing was I saw Dasic made a Twitter post about set 6.5 Neon Nights. He stated that it felt like some of the augments were just required and some of the carries were too linear in a sense. So after reading that post, I found that I kind of agreed with that, just because I think that the like a lot of the carries you have to have like play them around a specific team. For example, Draven, Debonair, you have to hit him VIP, otherwise he'll be significantly weaker. So that kind of thing where it's just kind of too linear bothers me a little bit, but I think that hopefully as the site goes on, there will be improvements and adjustments to allow for more sort of innovative team comps, I guess.
Now, I know when they were looking to introduce the new Vi into the set, they essentially took a similar print of Riven from set 4. I don't know if you've seen that too much. From what it seems, it doesn't seem like it's actually going to be like the Riven carry that we saw in Dusk. But have you actually seen Vi like in use in 6.5 yet?
A little bit, yeah. I've seen her played as a carry a couple times. She seemed a little bit underwhelming to me, like played as a carry in comparison to Riven, which obviously was when I first hit rank 1. Riven was one of my favorite comps to play at the time. So I don't think the Vi, like, she's sort of similar to Riven in a sense, but I don't think that it will be the same as Riven from set 4.
Now, you recently announced that you completed your contract with Invictus Gaming. You were kind of part of this secondary wave of signings in TFT that kind of came after set 4. And I just kind of want to know, I mean, what was it actually like to be a part of that team? And how did being a part of a team actually affect you as both a competitor and a streamer?
I would say that overall, I'm really grateful for the opportunity that IG did give me. I would like to clarify that a lot of people went onto my stream and on my Twitter asking me what happened. Why am I no longer a part of IG? There's no disputes or like disagreements or anything like that. It just simply ended because it was a relatively short contract. IG was looking to just step their foot into TFT and see whether it worked out or not. I think they decided to take a step back for the time being. So all three of us are currently without a team once again. But I think overall it was a really good experience for me, and I don't think that it changed how I played and how I interacted with like professional TFC too much as a player, because I would still just do the same types of practices. I would still just try to do my best in all the competitive tournaments and everything of that sort. As a streamer, I felt like it did provide more opportunities for me as a streamer, and I felt like there's more to talk about, more to discuss. There was really just like a required number of streaming hours, that kind of thing. So I felt like that sense of responsibility was important to me. So overall, as a streamer, I felt like it was more important, but as a player, I will always be trying to do my best either way.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that. I feel like this idea of the sense of structure is something that's not always there for a lot of TFT players. So actually, that's an interesting point to hear that when you are a part of a team environment, having those requirements, whether they're practice hours, streaming hours, whatever it may be, it actually does add a sense of structure to a TFT player's life. Now, with that said, I have a handful of questions straight from the community. If anyone's watching this and you want to have your questions featured on here, make sure to follow me on Twitter or join my Discord. Both of the links are going to be in the description. But the first question is going to come from Sunflower, who wants to know, based on your experience at Worlds and what you've seen at Worlds, do you feel like the amount of players playing at Worlds, we had 20 instead of 5, is the correct amount, or would you prefer to see more?
Initially, I would like to state something about like the amount of players at regionals, and then lead up to my answer in Worlds.
Sure, yeah.
So I think in regionals during set 5, usually there are around like a certain number of players that are a cut above the rest in North America, in my opinion, at least. So there isn't like a hard cutoff or anything like that, and obviously there are new breakout names, breakout faces that are have been playing super amazingly this set. For example, Spicy Appies, Asa. No one's really heard of them before set 6, but obviously they made a name for themselves and have been playing super well in this set. So I would say that the amount of players playing at regionals that I would say would be around the right amount for a spot at Worlds. I would say around like 24-ish, which is, I believe, what we have this time for set 6, which is a pretty good amount. I think. As for the structure of it, I still feel like a lot of times, like it may not always be the best player that makes it to Worlds and wins Worlds or that kind of thing, just because like the structure is just too little games. But it's really hard to. I get that it's really difficult to, like create a right number of games to increase viewer retention and also just like keep the hype of it all, because you can't really have an event over like 3 or 4 weeks and expect that everyone to retain viewership. But I would like to say I would like to see more games to qualify for Worlds. More slots for NA or and a lot of the bigger regions would be nice. I don't think that 20 is the correct number of players at Worlds. I think that there is a lot of talented players all across the world, and even just in North America, that you could really have and see showcased there. So I would like to see probably minimum of 32-ish, but obviously I am not like a tournament designer, or I don't really know that much about esports in general that much. So I can't really say for sure, but I would just say from as a player perspective, I would like to see there be more spots.
Next, I have a question from Jirachi, who wants to know who the tougher opponent was for you at the mid-set finale, Ramblin', Kivix, or the Rift Herald. But no, Jirachi has an actual question. They want to know how you balance school and competing. I mean, you talked about it before. It sounds like obviously that balance is going to be a struggle, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I think that right now I have been prioritizing school a lot. I was actually thinking about taking a gap year after my performance at Worlds in order to play TFT competitively, stream full time for a little while. But the thing is, I really wanted to like promote my experience at both college and I wanted to do both kind of. But obviously there are going to be some sacrifices for both. I can't stream as many hours as I would like to, and I can't possibly play and practice as many hours as I would like to as a competitive player. But I would say that I do try to make the most of my time, and I think overall that it's been going fairly well so far, and I've been able to meet my streaming requirements, and I've been doing well enough in school to the point where I would say I've been pretty successful at both. I think that I would like to work on my time management a little bit better, just so that I can dedicate more time to both TFT and also school. But I would say overall it's been going fairly well, and it may honestly be easier than some people think. And then as for my strongest opponent, I would say it still had to be Ramblin'. I know that Ramblin' was sick like going into the tournament, and like he wasn't feeling super well. So it's still super insane that he made it to the final day and performed as well as he did, even though he wasn't feeling well before the tournament. So I would definitely say that Ramblin's my strongest opponent.
Yeah, and just something I want to point out, if anyone watched my interview with Ramblin' that is going to come out, came out a couple days before this one releases, is that Ramblin', on top of being one of the best players going into the event, most people would say, also actually had the best average placement in the entire mid-set finale. So it really does seem like Ramblin' time and time again seems to just prove himself as one of the titans of North America. Now, I've got one last question for you, DQA. So this one's coming from Pie Hat, who wants to know, based on your experience with IG, one of the things that was unique about this is that you were on IG with 2 other players, Goobums and Noobowl. In TFT is obviously an individual game, but when you are on a team with other players and have this sort of team environment, does it kind of change the way either you practice or you talk about the game? Do you have people to bounce ideas off of? Like, what does the team aspect look like in TFT?
I would say that being part of a team doesn't necessarily have to be the name. So I would say that, for example, being on one of the other organizations, not just IG or anything like that, it doesn't really matter as much as just like having the people to talk to and having people to bounce ideas off of. Because even before the contract was initially signed, I talked to Noobowl and Goobums quite a lot, and they taught me so much about the game during Set 4 that I would dedicate that a lot of my World's performance towards them and how I played in regionals and that kind of thing. So I would say that it's less about being like it's less about the name of the team, and it's more about just having the people to talk to, having the people to bounce ideas off of, having the people to watch your games, try to help each other get better, that kind of thing. I would say that's very important to grow as players. But the actual name and the actual team doesn't matter as much, I would say, as a competitive player, but as a streamer, I think it does matter for the structure.
Well, DQA, that's actually everything I have for you. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to shout out?
Shout out to all of my supporters. Shout out to the people that I bounce ideas off of. Shout out to my parents, my family, my girlfriend for always supporting me. And yeah, hopefully I will be able to show up once again in Site 6.5 and maybe make another Worlds run.
It would be amazing to see. I mean, we're all waiting to see who the North American repeat performer at Worlds is going to be. So there's definitely a chance it may be you this year. We're all rooting for you. So DQA, again, thank you so much for joining me. Everyone watching, thank you all for watching to the end of this interview. For more TFT coverage and content, make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.